Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble. They've weighed in, they've warmed up, the gloves are on. In the purple corner, Mr. Leave, Nigel Farage. In the red corner, the Remain man, Andrew Adonis. Nigel, how are you feeling?
Good. Obviously it's going to be a hell of a battle here this morning. But I think I've got truth on my side and 17.4 million people.
Andrew Adonis.
Well, I think I've got the tide of events on my side. The Prime Minister's imploding. There's no deal that's going to go through. The last man standing is going to be the people's vote.
Okay, without further ado, let's go ahead. Let's start with round one. Deal or no deal? Nigel Farage, do you fear no deal?
No. I spent 25 years campaigning for a free trade deal, and that was easily achievable, but the Prime Minister never even asked for it. We got the clue, I think, at her speech when she talked down in Florence about a close and special relationship. So given there isn't time now to do a free trade deal, let's leave on WTO terms. Let's apply to the WTO itself, which means we can probably carry on tariff-free for the next couple of years anyway. And it's the only way now, it's the only way we can deliver the Brexit result.
Well, the problem that Nigel's got is he's been betrayed essentially by the Conservative Party, which is not going to back no deal. There's almost certainly a majority in the House of Commons next Tuesday for Yvette Cooper's proposal, which is to extend Article 50, a longer negotiating period, and rule out no deal. So what Nigel will do in that period, if he sets up his new party and seeks to mobilise, will be to campaign against the Conservatives, which he's spent most of the last 20 years doing. It'll be a kind of civil war.
Don't worry about that.
It'll be a civil war. No, we'll clean up. We'll clean up, Nigel, as you and the Conservatives go for each other.
Do you know something?
We'll do fine.
That was the mistake.
In defence of staying in the EU.
That was the mistake that Ed Miliband made in 2014 and 15. UKIP, he thought, when I was leading it, would hurt the Tory party, and in fact, what we saw in 2015 was UKIP costing Labour seats all over the country. And don't forget, hang on, there's 5 million people out there who voted for Corbyn in 17, who voted Brexit in 16. The idea that it's just the Tories that are split on this is nonsense.
Yeah, but the big mistake in politics always is to think that the future is a rerun of the past. The big difference now, which is the why politics is moving, is that people can see what Brexit would mean. The government has told them what Nigel's no-deal Brexit would mean: 6 weeks of medical supplies, a big hit to our trade, a hard border in Ireland. That is the reason why.
It's all you can do.
That is the reason.
Threaten.
It's the government who said this,
and
Nigel. It's not me. It's the government that said it.
You know,
and as people can see that, the House of Commons will vote against that next Tuesday, which is the reason why there is not going to be any no-deal Brexit.
All you talk about is Westminster.
Nigel Farage.
All you're talking about is what people within a square mile of where we are. I tell you what,
I'm out of the
I'll give you some advice,
right? What they say
Get out and meet some real people. You and I go together to the north of England, and we'll visit a few working men's clubs and go around the place. And what you'll see, actually, is there's now a growing body of support out there in the country behind a no-deal Brexit, because
you've been touring around the country.
People want to leave.
I'm out around the country the whole time. I've been in Sunderland and Gateshead and Newcastle, all these places. What do I hear? There are people who support your view, Nigel. Let's be clear.
There are
people who support your view, but the majority are not with you. The majority either want to stay or they are deeply concerned at what's going to happen to their jobs and their livelihoods.
I don't know where you're going in Sunderland. Perhaps a very expensive restaurant. I'll take you down the working man's club.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to go with you, Nigel. I'm happy to go with you. We'll have this big debate.
Why many listeners of this podcast don't understand, why do you not like the idea of Brexit, Andrew Adonis? Why isn't it not a good thing to claw back powers from all these unelected officials in Brussels and give them to elected people like yourselves or Nigel if you gave him an MP and let them do things and then sack him every 5 years?
Actually, to give Nigel his due, he was elected. He's been a member of the European Parliament for 20 years, which is why he's got a European pension of £73,000 when he retires. So he has been elected.
Will you stop making up bonkers numbers?
Let's be clear. This idea that the European...
Is everything you do
Nigel, is the European...
Is everything
Nigel, is the European Parliament elected or not? Were you elected?
4 times.
Yes. So it is elected. So let's get rid of this non-elected business. The big issue...
European Commission's not elected, Andrew, and they make the law.
Is the European Union a good deal for us? And it's a fantastic deal for our trade. It protects our jobs, and it's obviously not the sensible thing for us to crash out with no decent trade deal, which is what's proposed at the moment.
Of giving back power to elected people. Why is that not a good thing?
We haven't taken power away from elected people. It's Parliament that makes all these decisions. It's the elected people who make them. The question with sovereignty is, what do you do with it? You know, as Michael Heseltine famously said, the only person who is completely sovereign is the person who's alone on a desert island who can do what they like, and they are poor and they might not survive the night.
Okay, round 2. Andrew Adonis, should we leave or extend on March 29th?
Well, it's now looking inconceivable that we will leave on the 29th of March, because whether we have a new negotiation, which is what Nigel wants, or whether we have a referendum, which is what I want, either of those will involve an extension of the.
How will that happen? Because a motion passed next week, the Yvette Cooper, is a motion to an amendment to an emotion. There's no legal force.
No, there'll also be legislation that follows. But the key point
is
the
government won't allow time for
Theresa May will do it. There's no way that Theresa May is going to bring this. I have from all my conversations with ministers, they are not going to do a crashing out, trashing people's jobs.
But she has said 29 times in Parliament she will not extend Article 50.
The only thing that we know about Theresa May is that when she says categorically she's not going to do something, it happens. I mean, that is the story of the last 3 years. Remember, she said there wasn't going to be an election. There was an election.
And how?
She said that she wasn't going to do a deal with the EU, which involved the backstop in Ireland. She did the deal.
And how long is it?
So that's not.
But what about your promises? You're always. I agree with you,
right.
Chris. Theresa May constantly contradicts things that she's promised in the past. But what about your promises as a Labour Party too? What about the entire political class? You know, we held a referendum back in 2016 and everybody was told, this is your decision and we will abide by the result. It couldn't have been clearer. We then had a general election where the two main parties both promised the electorate, vote for us and we will take you out of the European Union. We then extraordinarily had a vote in Parliament and 498 MPs voted to trigger Article 50, which meant, as you well know, 2 years from a date you trigger it, you leave with or without a deal. So at every single there are no buts. There are no buts here. This is about well, there is a missing link, and the missing link is between the people of this country and their leaders, and that you are treating. You are. I'm bored with that. You told us that at the time of the Euro.
Are you bored with people's jobs? What's going to happen to them?
I heard this from. I heard this from your lot at the time of the Euro. I heard it from all of them at the time of the ERM, and you've been wrong about all of this stuff in the past. You can make your negative economic predictions, and I can make positive ones. But what matters?
They're coming true at the moment in terms of jobs, investment.
Yeah, if you look at British exports, they're the highest they've ever been. If you look at people in work, it's the highest it's ever been.
Do you think
look at wages up 3.3%?
Real income's 10% lower than they were 10 years ago.
This is not about economics.
This
is not about economics. Nigel, this is about democracy. This is about
trust. Do you think people who voted to leave also vote for being a bit poorer over the next 10 years, which is what these Treasury forecasts say? Right. Do they mind that?
Okay. My forecasts are they'll be a lot richer. All right? No.
I say over how long?
Chris, you cannot. Nobody can predict the economic future. All right? Nobody can. But what you can talk about is the trust that exists in our country between ordinary folk and the system within which we live. And I would argue that at no point in my life has trust in politics and our system of government ever been lower. And that is because people like Lord Adonis here are willfully betraying the Brexit vote.
And that's your risk, isn't it? You're damaging trust in politics by extending.
Two-thirds of people say that they now want a referendum on Theresa May's deal. That's about trust and that's about democracy. That's where we are. On the business of the Labour Party, because this is an important point, what we've said all the way through is we will not vote for a deal that is worse in terms of our trade and our jobs than the existing customs union and the existing single market. And the Prime Minister herself, Theresa May, has said that her deal will mean, and these are her words, less market access as a result of her deal, because we're withdrawing from the customs union and the single market. Less market access means selling fewer of our goods in Europe, fewer jobs, and worse paid jobs.
85%.
That is the reason. That is the reason why we need a referendum on this deal.
85% of the global economy, 85% of the global economy, and that figure grows every year, is outside the eurozone.
So
all right. So what we do.
So things are going to be worse.
So what we do by cutting ourselves,
still 15%.
By cutting ourselves off from the 15% of the world who regulate our businesses, who take away our competitiveness, we're opening ourselves up to a big, new, exciting world. But again, we're back to this point. You and I can talk economics. You and I can talk economics. Well, do you know what? I'm very interested in hearing all these people saying how bad it would be for us. People who've never ever bought or sold a good or a service or shipped stuff around the world. I have. And I'll tell you something.
The people who run these companies, they don't want to leave the European Union, Nigel. They've been very clear.
The people who run the multinationals,
Toyota,
the people who run the multinationals, of course, want to keep things as they are because it's a great system to crush the little man and woman.
This is
about our position. This is about.
You don't mind if these jobs go then? People employed by Nissan in Sunderland. That's okay.
We're going to have a lot more jobs.
Because they're going to crush all these little people.
If you remember, the man who told us if we didn't join the Euro that they might leave Sunderland, well, he's currently, I think, in prison. But never mind. We've heard all these threats before. Stop trying to threaten us. Get back to the key point. Why do you willfully want to overturn the greatest democratic exercise in the history
Andrew
of
Dennis,
this country.
answer that question. Are you overturning Brexit by having an extension?
The people should decide this.
They
I
did.
think no, because they never saw the deal. It's only in the
We
last...
didn't vote for a deal, we voted to leave.
It's only in the last 2 months we've seen the deal. Now we can see them. We should do
twisting,
the referendum, and then I will be in the pub in Gateshead with Nigel debating this.
Now we're on round 3, cross-party or party political talks. Do you first, Nigel Farage, why don't you work more closely with ERG and sort out Brexit and bring together the right on Brexit?
Again, huge mistake. This huge mistake to think that Brexit is about being on the right of politics. It isn't. It isn't. It's as much about the centre and the left as well, as 5 million Labour voting Brexiteers prove. So, now what I've tried to do, Chris, in terms of bringing people together, is through Leave Means Leave, a genuinely cross-party organisation. I've been working with people from the Labour Party, the Conservative Party, but perhaps as significantly, some figures from business, some figures more from entertainment. And what we're doing is we're showing Leave voters, we haven't packed up and gone home, but we're also, and it's a shocking thing to say, but we're preparing for the worst eventuality. If this betrayal becomes complete, we have to be ready to fight again. And I'll work with anybody within reason to achieve this.
I saw you last week with the Leave Means Leave rally with Ian Duncan-Smith, Esther McVeigh on stage there. Do you think that you will peel off Brexiteers from the Tory party if there's no Brexit, and we'll thought there'll be a new party formed? The Brexit party has been launched.
Well, they're two different issues. One is, how do you prepare to fight another referendum if this result gets betrayed? And I think Leave Means Leave is clearly the right vehicle to do that. Your question about a political party is a separate question. I've been involved in party politics, in UKIP politics for a quarter of a century. No intention of ever doing this again. But we may find that if the Adonises of this world manage to stop Brexit from happening, that we are contesting the European elections on the 23rd of May this year, and we need a vehicle to do that. Now, will people leave the Labour and Conservative parties to come and do it? I don't know. But it doesn't really matter. Whether they do or not doesn't really matter. If you give the electorate a clear choice, and the Brexit party, whatever it would be clearly for a clean break. The other party who'd do would be the Lib Dems, because the Lib Dems would be fully in.
And Labour's nowhere.
And Labour, no one knows what they stand for.
And
really.
Dennis, your party is at sea on Brexit.
Well, the biggest political movement in the country at the moment is the movement for the people's vote, and we've got 700,000 people on the streets of London before Christmas.
Not true. It was a quarter of a million, wasn't it?
It was
lies.
It was 700,000.
It wasn't.
The GLA numbers were less than that.
And it does indeed draw people from across parties. Indeed, a lot of people who formerly voted Leave 2 years ago now want a vote now that they can see the deal. Now that is turning into a massive campaign, which there will be for a referendum, I hope, in a few months' time. And as I say, it will bring together people from Labour, the Conservatives...
14 months. The government said 14 months.
Oh, that's a load of nonsense. You could organise a referendum in a few months. So that's what's happening at the moment. What I do agree is that this is no longer happening inside political parties. It's going beyond political parties. And that's a good thing, actually, because the parties haven't been great at linking in with the people. But why is it that this has been so successful? Because people do feel betrayed. All the promises that were made 3 years ago, the 350 million a week there was going to be for the NHS, and Theresa May's agreed 39 billion. There's a 39 billion deal that we're going to have to pay the EU for leaving. They said there were going to be 7 million Turks coming. That's clearly not happening.
Well, that was Nigel Farage saying that.
As people can see the lies, they want this referendum, and that's why the biggest political movement in the country
I've made some huge mistakes.
What's your worst mistake?
Well, I said up to 250,000 people could come from Romania, and I apologise. It's nearly 500,000 and going up rapidly. The big lie has been 50 years of lies, telling us it's just a common market, it won't really affect us. Even this week, we've seen the moves towards a European army becoming more and more advanced. And I just wish those that want us to remain would be more honest. This is a United States of Europe. Everybody in it has to join the euro. And that's the way forward. Now, if you want that, be honest with the people. But at no point in 50 years has your side been straight with the British public.
Yeah, but actually what's coming on now, which is the really significant thing happening in politics at the moment, is that Nigel Farage is being honest. He does want to come out of everything which is to do with Europe. Theresa May is not. What she is trying to do is to be pursuing a Brexit policy without actually doing Brexit, which is what she's doing with her deal, and that is splitting the Conservative Party. And I think that is what will lead to a referendum.
Here's the one really interesting
referendum.
thing.
Then the two of us will then have the straight fight: is our destiny better by working with Europe, trading with them openly, and having a proper set of relations that mean that we have better security and stability, or is it crashing out as Nigel wants and wrecking our economy and endangering our security? That is the real choice.
But what is interesting here is I do detect there's a change going on out there. that you know how tribal our system has been. So for the last 100 years, you can knock on doors, and there's no point making political arguments. We're Labour. We're Conservative. It's almost
it's been realigning.
It's been a tribal type of thing that we've been Labour since the First World War or whatever it is. And all right, now and again the SDP come along and chip away at that, or the Liberals have a good time, or UKIP come along. But basically we've been in these two tribes. What I'm now beginning to witness is people are now identifying as Leavers or Remainers ahead of being Labour or Conservative.
The parties might move towards reflecting that.
Well, Chris, I think this. I mean, Brexit was an earthquake in the British political system, but I suspect there are some big aftershocks to come. We could see British politics reshaped by this.
Actually, I agree that things are being reshaped. The thing I find most significant as I go around the country is young people. People under the age of 30 overwhelmingly want to stay in the European Union because they feel that their future lies. Oh yeah, all the meetings and contacts I have, and all the polls show it as well. I'm very strongly in favour of there's going to be a referendum this year in giving votes to 16 and 17-year-olds because their future is more at stake than anyone's, and I can assure you they Remain, not Leave.
Round 4. Andrew Adonis, what will the question be in your referendum?
Well, whether we want to stay in the European Union is the option that I favour.
You refight the 16 argument, do you?
No, the question then is really on the other side. Are they going to have two options? Are they going to have the Theresa May Leave option and the hard Leave option where we leave everything?
No deal, or Remain.
Or are they just going to have one option? Now, I'm happy for them to fight that out between them because there's clearly a massive fight going on the Leave side at the moment as to whether they should have one option or two options. I'm very clear that there should be a Remain.
There should be a
Remain option.
There's no fight at all. There's no fight at all. We don't want a second referendum. We don't need a second referendum. We've had a referendum, and you promised us.
Nigel.
And
the question
you
is,
promised us.
What do you want?
Why have you broken your promise?
Do you want one option or two options?
Why have you broken your promise? Have you lied to the
I haven't
British
broken
people?
any promise at all.
Well, your party said we'll abide by the result, and now you won't.
We said only if the deal was as good as the existing
That's
single
not what
market.
you said in 2016.
It is. In the 2017 election, we said that we would only vote for a deal that was as good as the single market and the customs union because we're not prepared to trash people's jobs.
But the party voted to leave, didn't it?
Provided we got a deal that was as good as the single market and the customs union, because we're not prepared to trash people's jobs. What the deal that Theresa May has done does trash people's jobs. She herself has said we'll have less access to European markets
and more access to 85% of the global market. It's really rather exciting, isn't it?
Because we have no deals. Liam Fox has not done any trade deals. We don't have any further access. Well, he hasn't done any. Remember, he was going to have 40 ready for signature. One second past midnight.
The whole world is queuing up.
The
whole world wants
It's
to speak to us.
fantasy.
They all do.
It's complete
America,
fantasy.
Australia,
total
Japan,
fantasy.
they're all queuing
Yeah.
up.
So why are the deals not ready? Why are the deals not ready then, Nigel?
Well, the answer to his question first.
Why are the deals not ready? If they're all queuing up to trade with us,
we're not allowed to do them because we're part of your blessed European Union.
You could start negotiating them now.
Well, if I'm afraid that Monsieur Barnier has made it very clear we're not allowed to do it, and we must bow down to our unelected masters.
I thought
the people you want to run our country.
You were telling us you were
what a shower they are.
I thought you were telling us you were taking back control.
Juncker running this country. God help us.
If you can take back control, you can certainly negotiate a trade deal. Nigel, the fact that there has not been a trade deal so far is because you've been incapable of taking it.
To be fair, they can't stand until we leave. What's your question, Nigel Farage? If Andrew Adonis gets his way, there's delay, then MPs vote in 2 or 3 months to have a referendum. What's your best question? Is it Leave Remain? Is it deal or no deal?
I mean, to be honest, why should Remain be on the ballot paper? Because that we settled. I mean, if you wanted to have another referendum on how we leave, I guess you could have that. I think it's a terribly bad idea. I think it would give yet more uncertainty, etc. But that's the real question. If you have a second referendum, should Remain even be on the ballot paper? And I don't think it should.
What we've now had is an acceptance that there are different Leave options, and that is going to be at the heart of this referendum. Is do you go with Theresa May's deal, which she says is essential to avoid a hard border in Ireland, not to not to endanger our trade and so on, or do you go for Nigel Farage's option, which is to crash out of everything and do huge damage?
Do you want a United States of Europe, Andrew?
I want to remain in the European Union.
And join the Euro.
No, I don't want to join.
And be part of the European army.
No, you're doing the scare
and
now.
Be part of the.
No. We have a perfectly good.
And be part of the European.
You're making all this up. We're
I'm
not
making
in
the European army up.
Had you noticed that?
I'm making it up, am I?
We don't have to join any European army. There's no proposal out there for a European army at the moment.
God help us! Stop lying to everybody.
No, it's not true. There is no European army. There is no European army.
Fully operational by 2025.
There was a speech this week, wasn't it?
Fully operational by 2025.
had you noticed we're not a member of the euro? We still carry around coins which have the Queen's head on.
Well, surely
we are not in the euro, and no one is
surely you want us
to
to join the euro.
No, I don't. I'm very happy with the position we're in at the moment.
What, being governed by unelected bureaucrats?
We get the best of both worlds at the moment. We get all the advantages of trade engagement with Europe, which is vital because half our trade goes to Europe.
No, it doesn't.
It does.
No, it doesn't.
Half our trade goes to Europe. So we have the benefits of that, but we're not forced into the...
How would a second vote...
things we don't want to do.
If you won the second vote, 52-48 or 54-46... a narrow win for Remain, how would that settle this debate? We're still in a Red Lion pub in 10 years' time having a row about it.
After the last 3 years, I don't think it would be narrow. I think that like 1975, when people were face to face with the real prospects.
If it is narrow, I mean, how big
I think it would be a big majority.
If it's 60-40, it won't end the argument, will it? It will carry on.
No, this is going to carry on for as long as
what we're alive
until the European Union blows up. And of course, the other thing that's going on here is you've got these maniacs like Macron and Merkel pushing for a full United States of Europe as quickly as they possibly can. The rebellion is growing across Europe. Italy now poses the biggest threat to the future of the European Union, far bigger than we pose. And fascinatingly, it's the youth of Europe. It's the under-30s of Europe rebelling in country after country after country.
They want to stay in the European Union here. The under-30s overwhelmingly want to stay
we are
in the
the
European
only
Union
country where the under-30s appear to be strongly pro-EU.
Why do you think that is?
An education system that, frankly, has not taught them critical thinking. But that's a separate debate.
I see.
Brainwashing.
I see. But the key point about it is that Mrs. Merkel is not going anywhere. No, she is.
Well,
Germany
she's going
is still
soon.
there. Yeah, no, but the centre ground in Germany is not going to break up the European Union.
Now, round 5. Finally, Andrew Adonis. When should Theresa May quit?
As soon as possible, because she's such a disaster. I mean, she's the worst.
And who's your ideal leader? Who's your ideal leader to take us through into this to staying in the EU as you hope?
The Conservatives.
And Amber Rudd or something.
Well, anyone who can actually manage the process of calling and supervising a referendum, because that's what the country needs at the moment. So whoever that is, I'm happy with whoever the Conservatives provide, who will do the will of Parliament and the will of the people to see that there is a referendum.
Nigel Farage, who would your best bet if it weren't Theresa May?
There's no demand for a second referendum out there, that's for sure. Anybody who has the guts and courage to recognise that as we sit here in the Red Lion, the legislation is clear. We have a referendum act that's in place. We are leaving in 64 days' time if the government has the will to just stand there and say, we will defy all those that want to betray Brexit. So somebody with guts, and I don't care who it is.
Boris Johnson?
I don't care who it is, as long as they've got the guts to do
Are we
this.
witnessing the end of the Tory party if they don't leave on the 29th of March?
Oh, I think it's pretty catastrophic for them, but I think it's equally pretty serious for Labour in some parts of the country.
I think it is catastrophic for the Conservatives because the party is in the throes of splitting at the moment. Is what's happening. It's a bit like the Corn Laws, which led to their last big split, which was on a big economic issue like this. So I think that is happening. I think what will happen in due course, as the country rallies to a new future in Europe, is that Labour, provided we're clear that that's where we should go.
I don't know what you're smoking, Andrew, but I want some of it. We will then happy stuff you're on.
We will then sweep the country in due course. That's what's going to happen. But meanwhile, of course, all the stories are that Nigel's setting up a new party, and of course that will further split the Conservatives because there'll be three parties on the right.
They are concerned about
I'm looking forward to this new party.
I think Labour should be very, very worried too. Yeah. Very worried indeed. Not in London, but in the Midlands and the North and in those marginal seats.
The big question, though, is to what's going to happen immediately, because all your listeners want to know what's happening immediately. Next Tuesday, the House of Commons votes on whether it's prepared to see no deal, leaving with 6 weeks of medical supplies and all of that. It's almost certainly going to vote against. The government will split if it doesn't vote against. There will be an extension of Article 50. So the one thing you can be sure about is we're going to be continuing this debate
Will
now
you
for
stand
many
for
months.
election yourself, Lord Adonis?
I'd be delighted to stand for election. I thought I was giving up politics. I was a bit like Nigel. I thought that I'd had enough of it. But the country's in such a state at the moment that you might get forced into it.
Do you feel energised? I mean, is it driving you a bit mad? All the
no, do I feel energised? Hugely energised by it, because the whole future of the country is at stake, and it's really important that we don't hand it over.
It seems to me, Nigel Farage, that it's the Remainers making most noise about Brexit. Leavers are, they're obviously concerned about it, but there's less passion on your side of the argument.
Well, I think they're incredibly well funded, obviously. Their international friends are right behind this campaign.
We've got the people.
Well, not really. You've got Mr. Soros, certainly. And I think the problem with the Leavers is, when 500 MPs vote for Article 50, it was a fairly reasonable assumption on our side to think we'd done it. It was going to happen. It was difficult to believe that we could be betrayed in this way. The betrayal is close. I suspect next Tuesday will bring it even closer to being completed. And what the Leave side has to do is to regalvanise. It's doing that, I believe, through Leave Means Leave. But I have to say, I desperately want us to leave on March the 29th. No
If
deal.
you do, your political career's over.
Great.
Are you sure?
Great.
Because the betrayal means more Farage.
No. Well, there's a good reason then. There's a very good reason. Guy
There you are, Andrew Adonis. Back Brexit to get rid of
Verhofstadt in the
Farage.
European Parliament last week said, I want Britain to stay, but Farage to go. So there we are.
What I want is us to stay in the EU, but through a democratic process, which is what we're about to go through now, because it looks as if we're going towards a new referendum. And if we do so, and we resolve this issue, I think then the whole centre of gravity will shift to the Labour Party.
What are the odds, Nigel Farage, on leaving on March 29th?
You're asking me to talk against my own book, aren't you, really? Chris, I've been the most pessimistic of the Brexiteers for some time, and I think that extension of Article 50 right now is the most likely outcome, unless she's able to get something on the backstop. And then I think, there's 118 Tory MPs, not all, but most of them strong Eurosceptics. They could say, even though this deal is ghastly at every level, if we don't get out of the European Union, our whole democratic system is going to be hijacked by the Adonises.
So it's saved by that.
So there is a chance. Yeah. There is a chance that if she can get something on the backstop, and I did notice yesterday Monsieur Barnier being a bit more grown up about the Irish border issue. So there is a chance that we get Mrs May's deal, we leave, albeit it's Brexit in name only. But I suspect extension is the most likely. Sadly,
I don't think that the European Union is going to betray Ireland, and nor should they betray Ireland, because the worst thing we could do in the United Kingdom at the moment would be to have a hard border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. Bombs went off in Derry last Saturday. There is a recurrence of terrorism taking place in Northern Ireland at the moment. We do not want anything that gives more juice to the paramilitaries. So I don't think that they'll change the backstop, and nor should they. The big issue, if they don't, is what then happens in the House of Commons. And though I think some Tory MPs will rally to Theresa May, it's not going to be enough. So I don't think she's going to be
unless the backstop's changed.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to be changed. Yeah. So what I think we're looking at is a continuing political crisis that will end in the only way we can resolve it, because it's the last option available, which is a referendum. And what should be the basic choice in that referendum?
So you would ignore us again? Would you ignore a second
leave
vote?
The whole point about having a referendum is so we can resolve this.
Go and tell me, would you ignore a second leave vote?
I didn't.
You've ignored the first one.
No, I haven't done at all. What happened after the first one was 2.5 years of Theresa May negotiating to produce this deal.
So you would
and now we
leave
can see
vote
this deal.
If everyone voted to leave again, that would be
because people will have seen what the options are.
So let's leave with no deal's the option. That's
time.
why 500 MPs voted for it. It was withdrawal agreement or leave with no deal.
Yeah,
so let's leave with no deal.
If you can craft that option, I'm perfectly happy to have it on the ballot paper.
Do you both foresee a time when Nigel Farage and Andrew Adonis can have a drink in a Red Lion pub and not row about Brexit?
I think if we talk about things like the reform of the education system that we were on earlier, we might have some areas of agreement.
There are some areas in which we could be civil, yes.
But not on Europe, I suspect.
Andrew Adonis, Nigel Farage, thanks for coming into the Red Lion pub for the Rumble in Red Lion, and please, I hope you enjoyed listening at home. Perhaps a handshake at the end to show it's all.
For you. And to you for being a good neutral umpire.
Thank you very much.
Well done, Chris.
Thank you.